Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Could be good afternoon, good evening. I guess it depends on where you're watching and what time. I guess where would determine what time. I'm Reverend Kelly Isola, and it's my joy and my privilege to be with you this morning. And you might have seen the slide I had up for just a moment before we got started that said, "Feeding the Hungry Ghosts." So it's just in time for Halloween, or about a week and a half away from Halloween. So I'm going to talk about feeding the hungry ghosts. Some of you might be familiar with the term. It comes out of the Buddhist tradition, but it certainly applies in our world and in our life. And I'm going to unpack that a little bit more. And I also put an affirmation. So you can see, you're watching on Facebook, I put an affirmation in there that says, "I'd like an order of desire with a side of compassion, please." So think about it as though you're ordering a meal. Yes, I'd like an order of desire with a side of compassion, please. Just hold that in mind, and we'll say that a few times throughout the morning. But first, before we go any further, let's just open in prayer. Let's pause for a moment and bring all of our attention into right here and right now, into this time, into this place, wherever you might be. Take a deep breath, inhale, and a big exhale, sigh it out. Yeah, sigh it out. Another big inhale, and a big exhale. And you can, if you're comfortable, close your outer eyes, and if not, just put your gaze maybe about 18 inches in front of you. And as you bring your attention to your heart space, to your breath, we remember and we affirm that there is one presence and one power active in our world, active as that oneness, our divinity, through which we are all connected, through which we are all connected. And we give thanks. We give thanks in advance for all things. We give thanks for what is yet to be. We may not even know what is to be, but we give thanks ahead of time. Not give thanks for all things. Maybe we give thanks in all things. For gratitude is a powerful, powerful spiritual practice. So one more deep breath in and an exhale, bringing ourselves into the center of our body, allowing the chair to hold you if you're seated, and then feeling yourself connected to earth. And we pause for a moment to acknowledge the earth that you are standing on, remembering that there were people before. There was someone else living on that space, on that earth, in that place, long before you came along, long before your house or your building. So we just pause for the indigenous people that were there before. And we honor and acknowledge and always give thanks with great compassion. And so we move forth into our day with a little joy, a little peace, a little compassion with our hungry ghosts. And so it is. Amen. I'm going to read the absolute word today, which is a Reverend Paul Hasselback once a week takes a daily word and rewrites a little bit, puts it in a language of oneness. But this one was, and so this is for today, the absolute word, and the word is steadfast. And it says, "I am a steadfast spiritual leader. No matter where I may be on my path, sometimes my spiritual life feels easy, and sometimes it feels hard. There are times that I enjoy new insights, blissful clarity, and peace. Yet other times I may struggle, feeling stuck and directionless, or even lonely on my walk to realize more and more of my divinity. At times like these, I remember that I am a spiritual finder. I renew my commitment to my spiritual journey. Although my attention may wander, my divinity never does. My divinity is always the same and is utterly dependable. Strength is the power that I use to remain steadfast. Wherever I am in space, time, or consciousness, I steadfastly remember to invest time in meditation so I more fully realize my divine powers of love, strength, and wisdom. I express them with ease and grace. I am a steadfast spiritual seeker. Yes, we are. My favorite part of all of that is that although my attention may wander, my divinity is always the same. So even when my attention wanders, my divinity never does. It's always the same and it's utterly dependable. So I want you to hold on to that today as I'm talking about feeding our hungry ghosts. So, what the heck is a hungry ghost? Well, let me show you a little picture. It comes from the Buddhist cosmology. Apparently, there's over 30 hungry ghosts, and they are a little bit creepy. They're a little bit scary. You can see the image on the screen. They generally have really big bellies and scrawny little necks. So as you can see in the picture, they're kind of creepy. They're kind of scary, and they're riddled with powerful desires. And so their belly is always big and their neck is really skinny because they can never be satisfied. They have these powerful desires. Like I said, I've seen, I think 35 or 36 of them, these desires, but they are never satisfied, never. And I wanted to talk about feeding the hungry ghosts. One, because we're coming up on Halloween. And so I had to slide something in about Halloween and ghosts and, goblins and things that go bump in the night. But I want to put it into the context of the world that we're in, right? We can't go a day without talking a little bit about what's going on in our world and maybe the struggles that we're having. But I want to talk about it in the context of these hungry ghosts using that affirmation that I wrote. I'd like an order of desire with a side of compassion. Right. We're going to talk a little bit about desire too. But so you can see the hungry ghosts. They're these big bellies, these really thin necks, which also means, if you think about it, how much can you really swallow if you have this very long, skinny neck? And some of them are, if you look at the picture, they're all twisted up. Um, so you can never get really much in there, the way the cosmology and the stories are written and the teaching goes. So there's never enough to satisfy. It's never nothing is ever fully met. So there's always this seeking, there's always the desire. And I think most of us know struggles of our own. Most of us can identify with having struggles and not being able to get some needs met, or even, when is this struggle going to be over, right? I think most of us are familiar with that. We live that it probably pops up in our mind at least once a day. When is this going to be over? When is this going to be over? Right? When are we going to get back to normal? Well, I'll go so far as to say we're not getting back to a normal. There is no normal. I don't know that we're getting back to anything. I think what we're being invited into is this sense of desire, but desire isn't always a bad thing. Desire is not always a bad thing. Desire is yearning. Desire is longing. Desire is natural. Desire is wholesome, right? Let me use a real silly example. First of all, you ever been out to eat at a restaurant and you're done with your meal and, the server comes by and wants to know if, would you like dessert? And you kind of go, I'm not sure. I really have a desire for chocolate cake, right? Or no, I'm desiring to pause and to stop and to just enjoy my cup of tea, or just to enjoy sitting here talking. So the reality is that desires are natural, they're wholesome. It's yearning, it's longing. So desires, whether it's physically or mentally or emotionally, a desire is a wanting, is a longing. And certainly spiritually, how many of us are, long to know God? Right? We've heard that term before, long to have an experience. I actually happen to believe that longing and yearning and that desiring is really the activity, is divine activity. It's my higher self sort of reaching. Now, like most things in life, pushed to an extreme, they fall apart. And so, while desires are necessary, I believe they're necessary for us to survive. They're necessary for us to flourish. They're necessary for us to have happiness, right? To have the things that we love. You know, if you go to college, you don't go to college to just be done and then go do whatever. There's a desire, right? Oftentimes people return to college later in life because there's a desire for learning. There's a desire to complete something. And then after school, I want to, go work in finance, or, if you went to seminary, I want to go work in church ministry. There's a desire to fulfill, right? And so there isn't anything inherently wrong with them. They're, as I said, they're natural, they're wholesome, they show up every day in our lives. So first thing, pay attention to that. When are desires coming up? When we get into trouble with desires is when they get pushed to an extreme, when we become really attached to them and we kind of get this tunnel vision, right? And you kind of always fall short, whether it's the new home or the new car or the extra 35 pounds you're trying to get rid of, or, to patch up a friendship, or to be pain free, my knees, or whatever the, illness. There is desire built into pretty much everything in our life because it's a life energy. Um, we, there's the desire to meet our basic needs, right? Of safety, of food, right? Of bonding, of belonging. I think we all have this desire to belong. Um, it's when the needs are not met, when we become fixated on the desires, or we become fixated on finding a substitute, for the desire, and then it becomes unmet, right? Our desires or our needs, our basic needs even, are unmet. That's when we kind of get into trouble. That's when it becomes that hungry ghost, right? Always can't get enough, never fed, always hungry, never fed. And it's a ghost because it hangs around, right? It nibbles around on the back of your brain and is always like popping up like, oh yeah, there's that. Oh yeah, oh, I'm hungering for this. I'm hungering for this. It's sort of like drinking salt water to quench your thirst. We would never do that. I would never do that. There's a substitute that never really satisfies the deeper need. And yet, how often do we go for the substitute because we're kind of in a hurry? Right? I got to get that done. I got to get that done. I want this. I want this. I'm desiring that. Again, the desire itself isn't anything wrong with it. It's when we become attached to it, and that becomes a sole focus. All desire is fulfilled through the formative word. That comes from Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity. He says all desire is fulfilled through the formative word. So, formative word. What words are we using to bring our desires into fulfillment? And this is where we can go down the road of like, yeah, that's not it at all. Or we go down the road of fulfilling and having the desire met, fulfilled. Not, the hungry ghost goes away. Um, some off the road, the things when we get really fixated or we go for a substitute to try to meet that need or to have that desire fulfilled, like right now we get really stuck on it. I gotta have that. I gotta make the person see that I wasn't trying to be, I didn't mean to insult them. I gotta get so and so to understand, where I'm coming from. One of the ways I find in spiritual communities fascinating around this idea of desire, or maybe getting attached to it, is when I hear someone say, well, my truth is, and the minute I hear someone say my truth, and not like I haven't said it before myself, is now I'm kind of attached to what I'm thinking. I'm attached to what I want. I'm attached to what I believe, rather than just not saying that, right? The minute I say, well, my truth is, I've just sort of closed the door, and I've now brought a hungry ghost to life. Because if I close the door, there's no space for that ghost, that hungry ghost, to be fed, because I've closed the door, right? How many times have you heard someone say it? Well, my truth is, I don't know about you, but I kind of go, woot, the ears close, I smile and nod, but I'm no longer listening. So there's no way for that, what I'm really desiring, which is connection, which is understanding, which is belonging, maybe forgiveness, or I want to offer forgiveness. I want to understand you. I want to be heard. All of these are desires. But again, since the formative word, all desires are fulfilled through the formative word, the minute I say things that will fulfill the opposite of what I'm looking for, now I'm into trouble. So think about it. Alcohol, shopping, drugs, perfectionism. Anybody out there have, really connected about being right, or seeking approval? Here's one for you. The self-help industry. The self-help industry. And you look at your bookshelf, you probably can identify with what I'm about to say. $12 billion a year. 12 billion, that's with a B. $12 billion a year on it's a $12 billion a year industry. So the self-help industry is $12 billion a year. That includes books. So look at your bookshelf. How many self-help books do you have? Retreats, workshops, webinars. Yeah, now we're online, right? So all of these things are online, but how many self-help ones are out there? And it's probably even more than that, 12 billion. This was a year ago. I don't know if that 12 billion isn't more. But stop and think about it. $12 billion a year. I'm going to guess that there's a lot of people that aren't okay with who they are, right? They're just not okay. They're desiring something. That's the reason we go for a self-help book or a retreat or a workshop, because there's something that has gotten caught in our attention. There's a hungry ghost, kind of haunting us, that has caught us, that confines us, that we get hooked into, that we want to feed. And we'll never feed it from the outside. Never. In the 12 Powers, Charles Fillmore says, desire goes before every act of your life, hence it is good. It is the very essence of good. It is God in a phase of life. I'm going to say that again because I think this is a great statement from Charles Fillmore. Desire goes before every act of your life, hence it is good. It is the very essence of good. It is God in a phase of life, which is really interesting. It's God in a phase of life. So remember I said all desire is fulfilled through the formative word. So as we are desiring, which is an impulse toward our ever evolving soul, desire goes before every act of life. It has to. Think about what you have brought into life. Think about what you have made manifest in your life. There was a desire, there was a want, there was a thought, right? Before you're like, oh, the imagination kicks in, and the chooser, our will, right? We make a choice to go for that desire, to have that desire fulfilled. Desire becomes, maladaptive or not in our best interest when we are attached. When we are attached to it, then the suffering becomes. So think of it this way. I already said it. I'd like an order of desire with a side of compassion, right? Think about being in a restaurant. Yes, I'd like an order of desire, please, with a side of compassion. And I say it that way because, I'm thinking of hungry ghosts and the food, metaphor or analogy, but I don't want us to lose, I don't want us to give up desire altogether. It is innately and inherently good. And it comes before everything we do. Think about it. When you're joy-filled, when you're excited, when you're at peace, there was desire that came before it. It may be really fast, but pay attention. And then the reason I say with a side of compassion, so that we keep ourselves from going off in the ditch with desire, so that we keep ourselves from getting disconnected, so that we keep ourselves, open We keep ourselves in the creative, healthy goodness of desire. You know, oftentimes we desire connection. We desire belonging. We desire friendship. I'll pick up the phone once in a while and I'll call someone. And often it gets to be a habit sometimes in ministry that when you call another minister, it's because you want something or you need something. And really all I say is, nope, just needed a voice. You know, the solo distancing during a pandemic is for the birds. So I just needed a voice. I was desiring connection. I just wanted to hear a friendly voice. Sometimes I want to hear a sane voice, but yeah. So desire, or when we're desiring connection, we realize that we have become disconnected. We realize that we have forgotten that sense of basic goodness, of all that is good, right? The foundation on which we stand. And we can create a lot of pain around that, which stops us when we forget, right? When we have that sense of disconnect, which is really what the picture of the hungry ghosts is about. You know, that real skinny neck and the big belly. There's a disconnect between what is being fed and then it nourishing the body. So there's a disconnect. So when we get attached to our desire, it's because there's a disconnect, right? When we realize our desire is sort of driving us off somewhere else, we have stopped living this deeper sense of presence. We've stopped living this deeper sense of love. And so we'll chase after the substitutes, which can never fill the hollowness, can never fill the belly, can never nourish us spiritually, emotionally, physically. And so sensing our neediness and our futility with grasping, we just heap on another layer of this sense of inadequacy. And then we get caught in a loop, right? We get caught in this loop of pain that we're craving, and then we start condemning ourselves. And then, of course, if it's really bad, we may hear things like, oh, what are you holding in consciousness? Or what are you thinking about that you're creating all this pain in your life? Pause, take a deep breath, and there's no need to condemn yourself. Remember, I'd like an order of desire with a side of compassion. So here's the compassion piece. Because when we get stuck in this loop, right? And I've done this. I'll use the example of the phone. I'll make, the first person doesn't answer, the second person, I'm up to number 5, right? I'm scrolling through my phone, picking out numbers, and all I get is a voicemail. And I'm like, really? All I'm wanting is to connect with someone. I just want a friendly voice. I'm tired of doing this alone. This blah, blah, the monkey mind is going. And all of a sudden, I feel even lonelier because I've gotten into this loop. I keep narrowing the loop, right? Narrowing that throat of what the fulfillment of my desire needs to look like. Hence the side order of compassion. So how do we do self-compassion? Take a deep breath, first of all. So the first step in compassion is kindness. And put a hand on your heart or put your hand on your cheek. That's even more powerful. So put your hand on your heart or put your hand or both hands on your cheeks. How we do that to little kids, right? We do that with little children or with someone we love, right? You cup their face in your hands because we love them. We want them to know kindness. We want them to know love. We want them to know that we are connected. So you can do this yourself, right? When I've run out of the numbers, I'm down to number 6 or 7 and people still aren't answering. I'm like, how can people, it's a pandemic, who's not answering their phone, right? And the hungry ghost is really taken over and is really not getting fed. Start with self-compassion. Step number 1, kindness. I put my hand on my heart. Maybe I put a hand on my cheek, and I have good cheeks for that. And I think, what words would I say to my best friend? What words would I say to someone I care about? What words then can I tell myself? Because it's the same practice, right? So what words would I tell my best friend? I would tell my best friend that you are okay just the way you are. I would tell my best friend, I know you want to hear a voice. I know that you want to connect with someone you love. I know that you're needing support. So close your eyes and think about a time when you did hear the voice of a friend on the phone, when you did have a sense of being supported, right? And then the second step is mindfulness. So where am I? If I'm really connected to this desire, I got to feed this ghost. I got to, right? Monkey mind. Pull myself back to being mindful. What am I doing right now in front of me? In this moment, I'm sitting at my desk, I'm talking with you, and I'm talking about compassion. So I bring my mindfulness, my attention back to whatever I'm doing, making my bed, scrolling through the guide on the TV, reading a magazine, out taking a walk. And if I'm out taking a walk, stop and look at the ground, being mindful, pausing, and just being exactly with what is in front of you in that moment. And that's it. That's being mindful. Where am I? What am I doing when this desire has taken over and become a hungry ghost that can't be fed? Put my hand on my heart for kindness, tell myself what I would tell a best friend, bring my attention to just one thing in front of me. And then finally, the third part of compassion is remembering a shared humanity. And that means remembering I'm not doing this alone. I am pretty sure out of 7.5 billion people on this planet, I am not the only one feeling lonely and disconnected and needing a sense of belonging, needing a sense of where's my people? I'm on number 8 on my phone and no one's answering. Where are all my peeps? And remembering that I'm not alone. There is someone else that is having the same experience. And just by remembering that simple little thing, it kind of lessens the anxiety, lessens the emotion. I can notice what's happening. I can notice the monkey mind. I can notice my loneliness. I can notice my upset. I can notice all of it. And I can choose to pause and bring a tenderness to the part of me that feels empty. My good friend, Reverend Paul Hasselbeck, says, give yourself large doses of grace. I adopted that a few months ago, and I use that a lot. So I can notice what's happening, choose to pause, bring tenderness to the part of me that is feeling inadequate, that is feeling lonely, that is feeling disconnected, that is convinced that all of these people that aren't answering their phone got together and decided not to answer Kelly's calls. I can give myself large doses of grace. I can remember that love is always loving me, and I can touch that grace and give myself large doses of grace. I can have and enjoy my order of desire. Yes, I always want desire in my life. It's life-giving. It's imagination. It's zeal. It's joy. It's what keeps us moving forward. But I need the side of compassion, right? I need the side of compassion. So I'd like an order of desire with a side of compassion, please. That side of compassion that is kindness, mindfulness, and a shared humanity. So let's take that into meditation. I'm just going to play a song for a couple minutes that I'm going to invite you to breathe, to just follow. It's Karen Taylor Good and Stowe Daly. And I want you to just follow along with them and breathe.
Before the craziness begins, I breathe deep and go within. Here I So breathe freely, breathe often.
Make your life beautiful with every breath you take.